Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today on An Actor Reacts, I'm going to be looking at some videos on how to cry on cue. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you know that I am staunchly against fake crying. I don't think that's what real acting is actually about. I don't think you should fake cry as an actor. I think you should really cry. I think you need to be in that emotional place, and so fake crying is not your job as an actor. Your job is to experience the emotions of the character. So because of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch some YouTube videos of different people giving advice on how to cry on cue. And I'm going to kind of break down why it doesn't work or why it's not going to be as effective as real emotion, and see kind of just how silly some of these things might be. So we'll take a look at these now.
Scene or throughout the scene somewhere. So Michael Wilson says there are 3 ways to use these emotional triggers. One way is to use the real life triggers. So obviously real life means what it sounds like. It's using your own past emotions, your own past events to creating this for the character. No, I'm not trying to say that you should think about a specific memory and go into tears and get super vulnerable and ruin yourself during this performance, because that'll be so hard to snap back into this performance. But what I mean is by developing your core events and core emotions. This is talked a lot about in the book as well. A core event is an event that happens in a specific moment and triggers an emotion. And core emotion.
So it sounds like so far what she's talking about right now is referring to basically Strasburgs techniques. It's using past experiences, and even though she said to not basically relive past experiences, she's basically saying use real life experiences to create a trigger. And so there's no imagination, and that's all completely real life, which I disagree with.
Emotions are the emotions that you get from those core events. So just for an example of a core event, dark core events could be something like failure, loss, pain, whereas some more lighter core events could be love, success. So events that surround these kind of things. So for example, if you're in an abusive relationship and you have a huge fight with your partner, that could be a core event of abuse. Or on the lighter side of things, say you...
And that right there is an example of using real life experiences to trigger an emotion, rather than creating an imaginary circumstance so it's not something that has actually happened.
Get married to your partner, that would be kind of like an event of love. So yeah, as you can tell, it's important to realize how these core events can be put into a category like failure or loss or something like that. Because then if you're using the real life technique, you can identify events that happen in your life that go along with those core events as well. So for example, maybe your character is in an abusive relationship with their partner, but maybe in your own life you are in an abusive relationship with yourself. I know that got really dark really fast. So you can see how 2 different events, although different, can kind of combine to develop the same kind of feelings for you as an actor. So what I recommend is identify what kind of event your character is going through, figure out what kind of core event it is, and then try to relate it to an event that's happened or is happening in your...
That's basically Strasburg saying, let's relive or let's connect something in the story with something that really happened in our lives or is going on in our lives. That's Strasburg right there. That's method acting. And I disagree with that. I think that is wrong, because you're using real life experiences to feel your emotion rather than using an element of truth, which is just a thing, a person, place, or thing that's true about you or a real event in your life, and then making an imaginary circumstance that gets you to that emotional place.
Also talked about in the book are pitfalls, which are basically mistakes that actors make. A huge part of this is making your face look a certain way, like you're gonna cry, which is so hard not to do. I know it because I've done it. It is so hard to not do that when you're trying to look like you want to cry, you really want to cry, and maybe you're not getting there emotionally.
Okay, so here's where I have an issue. She's talking about, you don't want to make it look like you're trying to cry. And that makes sense. But the problem, here's why that happens. Here's why you start to do that. Is because your focus is on being emotional. Your focus is on crying tears. And then you start to get in your head and analytical and trying to do all this stuff. Don't do that. Instead, keep your focus on what you're trying to accomplish in the scene. Put your focus on how the other person's being, what you're trying to get through to them. So in Meisner, we call it what you're doing to the other person. And if you've really worked on the emotion, so that way it's living in you, it's controlling you, like I talk about, you get to that point, and then you're so focused on doing what you're doing to the other person. If you're really fully invested in that, then you will produce real tears. You won't have to try to make it look like you're crying. You're not going to do anything artificial. Meisner said, the quality of your life on stage is in how fully you are doing what you're doing. If you are so fully invested in doing what you're supposed to be doing in the scene, you'll have a very rich, vibrant life. You'll be real. You'll be genuine. You'll be truthful. Your quality of your performance will be greater if you're fully invested in doing what you're doing rather than being stuck in your head and trying to cry and all that stuff.
So basically, I wasn't able to cry on cue for years. I just could not. I Googled it. I could not figure out how to. My eyes don't even water when I cut onions. So there was
Again, being able to cry on cue is such a big deal among actors, especially beginners. They feel like I have to be able to cry on cue. And like she said, she Googled it. She's trying to figure out how to do this. And this is why I'm teaching you guys this. This is why I'm talking about these and doing these reaction videos, is because it's not about crying tears. It's about the emotion. The focus should not be on making tears happen. The focus should be on the actual emotion itself and really experiencing that. And if you do that, you will have tears. The focus should not be on having tears. That's the number one problem with all this crying on cue stuff. The focus is on producing tears. That should never be the focus.
I've never been able to do it off of what people say to do. So they say to all this hippie stuff, think of something really sad and you'll start crying. For me,
hippie stuff? Think of something really sad and you'll start crying is hippie stuff. No, that's not hippie stuff. That's Strasburg. That's basically a very dumbed down explanation of Strasburgs Method, which is to relive a past experience. Sense memory, emotional recall. It's reliving past experiences to produce the emotion. That's basically what she's talking about. And so it's not a hippie thing. This was developed back in the 30s, mid to late 1930s. So it's not a hippie thing.
The main thing I do is a staring contest with anything in the room.
Here we go again. So many people like the staring thing. If you do it off camera, I'll say if you do it off camera, then maybe it's not too bad of a thing. Like the cameras, they're getting ready to get it to shoot, and then so you stare for a while. Sure, why not? But the problem is then your focus again is on creating tears, and it's not about the emotion that you're feeling. It's about creating tears.
My second tip is your breathing is so important. So if you're pretending to cry, you can't just be there
Never pretend to cry. Never pretend to cry. If you can't cry, don't cry. If your character's supposed to cry, do the emotional preparation so you are really crying. But never pretend to cry. Because pretending to cry, the audience will see you're pretending to cry, and it ruins everything. If there's one thing that takes an audience out of a scene, it's faking. Because they can tell. There's the old saying that the camera knows when you're lying. The camera will catch you lying. The camera picks up on all those things and will betray you if you're lying, if you're faking. So as an actor, if you're trying to pretend to cry, the audience will see it. And it'll take them out of the scene, and just something won't feel right to them. They may not know that you're faking crying, but something will feel off about it, not genuine. And it ruins it for them. So don't ever pretend to cry.
And then just cry, because your body is not gonna think that you're crying. So you almost need to trick yourself into thinking you're really sad and actually wanting to cry. So what I do is I sort of hold my breath a little bit, and breathe quite deep and sometimes quite fast. Also, facial expressions are so important. So whatever you really do when you're
Here's some more of that. When, you know, whatever facial expression you make when you really cry, do that now. Do that here. Again, focus on external stuff. Making a face to try to produce tears. Again, it might help you produce actual tears, but then you look like you're faking everything. It looks funny, and again, it's not real. Okay, so I think I covered a good portion of the idea that emotion is really about what you're feeling in the moment. It's about preparation. It's about experiencing the emotion for real, not pretending. And when you use these kind of techniques, they're talking about counting down from 10. It's the one that everyone seems to use, which is staring for a long period of time. Those kind of things, those are pretending. Those are fake. It's a results-driven approach instead of the process, the experience. So getting to where you're fully experiencing the emotion, it's living in you, it's controlling you. When you get to that point, then the emotion's going to be great. And you don't have to worry about the tears because they will happen. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a suggestion for something you want me to react to, be sure to comment below. Also, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Thank you so much. Keep living truthfully.